Section 1. A Yard on Fire. Richmond, March 14, 1943. March 14, 1943. Richmond, California. The permanent metal shipyard shuddered like a living thing. You smell hot metal before you see it. The tang of burning flux, the iron-sweet sting of oil and wet lumber, the faint, greasy perfume of diesel from idling trucks. A low, constant percussion rings through the air. Hammers on steel, pneumatic riveters coughing and wheezing, and the staccato spit of acetylene torches. Men and women move through this noise with the choreography of a swarm. Foremen shout in short, sharp sentences that cut through the clamor. Overhead, a grey winter sky presses close, and the shipways glisten with rain and the bright blood of welding sparks. On the main platform, a man in a plain suit and a battered fedora stands apart from the noise, but not untouched by it. Henry J. Kaiser is not a naval officer. He carries no rank, no brass, no uniform. He's broad-shouldered, hands stained with shipyard grime despite the suit. Eyes a hard, practical blue that keeps measuring distance and time. Around him, a dozen foremen wait with clipboards, grease on their knuckles, sleeves rolled. He looks like a businessman and thinks like an engineer who learned from the earth, a contractor turned industrialist who built dams and roads, and now, with his hand open, is wrestling the sea into submission. Below the platform, the skeleton of a ship lies half-born. Massive plates the size of house roofs, cradled in scaffolding like bones waiting for meat. Where riveters would once have drilled, heated and hammered, a new sound has taken hold. A long, sustained hiss and the wet, metallic smell of molten metal. The electric arc of welding. Sparks arc in million-dollar constellations as welders move along seams with torches that look like oversized pens. It is faster, it is noisier, it is controversial. A foreman named Tom Reynolds, 39, a veteran of rivet lines in New York yards, approaches Kaiser with a mix of deference and resentment. "Mr. Kaiser," he says, voice almost lost in the din, "they're saying welded hulls crack in the North Atlantic. The Navy engineers won't sign off on it. The riveters say we're chewing through good men. Tom's gloves are black with soot. The knuckles are raw where blistering has sewn new skin. He speaks for 1,000 men who have built ships by rhythm and muscle for a generation." Kaiser's jaw tightens. "We don't have the luxury of tradition," he replies, voice low but precise. "We have ships to the Atlantic. We have convoys turning into graveyards. We have mothers in Liverpool waiting for bread. If welding saves weeks, if it saves days, then it saves lives." He turns and gestures toward the hull. "These plates have to be joined faster than the U-boats can sink the next convoy. We will train more welders, we'll retool, we'll race the wolf." Around them, the yard is an experiment in industrial improvisation. Men who had never seen a ship launched before learn to read blueprints like maps. Women, welders, assemblers, riveters are everywhere, moving with hard focus and faster hands than those who scoffed at them. The bellows of a crane moan as it swings a 20-ton section into place. Scaffold lines of riveters crowd one berth, welders crowd another. A young welder, Maria Alvarez, skin freckled from coal dust, squints through a darkened hood as she lays a bead of weld thick as a thumb. Her breath fogs the lens, and her face is lit by the white flame of molten steel. She has been taught to move deliberately, to feel the metal's response in her wrist and forearm. "Keep it steady," the trainer murmurs. "Keep the arc tight." Beyond the yard's fences, the war at sea is a slaughterhouse. Night after night, the Admiralty's cables smell of bad news. Convoys torpedoed east of Greenland. Tankers exploded in a red bloom off the coast of Ireland. Radio operators passing mayday after mayday. U-boats in wolf packs stalk the North Atlantic lanes where cargo, coal, grain, ammunition, medical stores must flow to keep Britain alive. The Admiralty's men whisper the blunt arithmetic. A certain tonnage of merchant shipping must arrive each month, or Britain will be under rationing like nothing seen before. Convoy losses are measured not just in ships, but in livelihoods and in the morale of a nation waiting on crates. Into that arithmetic steps a civilian who understands production the way a general understands logistics. Kaiser's idea is not merely to weld, It is to reimagine the ship as an assembly puzzle, to prefabricate sections in parallel, to use standardized parts cranked out by dozens of small factories and then bolted or welded together like a giant erector set. The shipyard becomes a factory more than a traditional yard. Jigs, templates, conveyor-like lines that move sections into position, and teams specialized for each seam and each plate. The blueprint is the new drill sergeant. Time is the enemy. But the transformation is political as much as technical. Trades unions bristle. Navy engineers scowl at the civilian solutions, and the traditional shipbuilding establishment mutters about brittle welded seams in cold water. Newspapers run skeptical pieces about the Kaiser method. Yet every hour saved in the yard ripples across the ocean as a delivered cargo. And every convoy that gets one more tanker means another winter survived in London. A whistle shrieks. Men climb to places that would have been cordoned off a year before. Foremen bark orders that sound like prayers. A foreman paints a number on a beam, 432, and cranes swing into motion. A hulking section lifts, hangs like a suspended whale, then is lowered with surgical precision into the mating seam. Maria's torch finds a meeting of plates, and the seam sings under her hand. For a moment, the yard holds its collective breath, then releases it in a chorus of shouts as the weld holds. Kaiser watches, not like a man surprised, but like a man whose gamble is paying out slot by slot. He knows the Atlantic will not stop. The U-boat packs will come again and again. But if a new ship can slide from cradle to sea in half the time, then attrition becomes a math problem the Allies can outpace. This is not a story of heroism at sea. It is a story of a different kind of frontline. The workshops and yards where civilian hands forge weapons of survival. The stakes are not abstract. They are cargo manifests, ration books, and the slow steam of a freighter that must keep steaming to keep a nation alive. The weld holds, the men shout. The crane releases its burden, and somewhere far beyond the fogged windows of the Richmond Yard office, the Atlantic churns under a steel-gray sky, indifferent to celebration. April 3rd, 1943, 200 miles west of Ireland. The convoy moves like a limping animal across a restless sea. 47 merchant ships in staggered columns, their dark hulls rising and falling in cold swells, escorted by a thin screen of Allied destroyers and corvettes. The horizon is a dirty blur, sea and sky mashed together by mist and sleet. Every wave slams like a warning. Every shadow on the water looks like the raised back of a predator. Below the surface, Kapitänleutnant Ernst Vogt waits. His Type 7 U-boat, U-608, runs silent at periscope depth. The men are hushed, diesel engines off. Only the slow hum of batteries, the drip of condensation, and the distant whale song echo of merchant screws turning in the water above. Vogt presses his eye to the optic. Through the wobble of the scope, he sees the convoy as a parade of black silhouettes, fat-bellied freighters, tankers weighted with fuel, cargo ships loaded with food, trucks, weapons. He feels the old familiar thrill tighten in his stomach. For 2 years, it has been easy. The Atlantic has been a killing ground, a hunter's paradise. Angle on the bow, he murmurs. A hand on the stopwatch, a whispered calculation. The numbers are almost comforting. Distance, speed. Bearing, fire 1, fire 2. The torpedoes slide from the forward tubes with a muted cough, swallowed by the cold sea. The men count in their heads, each second stretching like wire pulled to breaking. Impact, a dull, distant thump carries through the steel hull. Then another. The surface erupts in twin columns of flame, briefly illuminating the storm like hell's own lighthouse. One tanker splits open, fire races across its skin, fuel turning the surrounding waves into a writhing orange lake. Another cargo ship staggers, listing severely as her holds flood. On deck, British and American sailors scramble in panic and discipline all at once. Lines cut, lifeboats lowered, flares fired into the screaming sky. From the destroyer HMS Havelock, a klaxon screams. Depth charge crews rush to stations. The sharp-eyed Aztec operator leans over his equipment. searching for the faint echo that will betray the underwater killer. Bolt orders full dive. The boat slips deeper, the water above going from streaked green to an endless midnight blue. The first depth charge explodes nearby with the terrifying thunder of a god's fist striking the sea. The U-boat shudders, gauges jump, a light bulb pops. Somewhere in the engine room, a man swears under his breath. Another explosion. Closer, then another. The men brace themselves, jaws clenched, hands gripping pipes and rails. The Atlantic, once a hunter's highway, has begun to fight back. Allied escort tactics have improved. Radar pulses through the fog above now. Aircraft patrols range farther. Still, tonight the wolf has tasted blood again, yet something is different. As the hours pass and the battle fades into distance, Fote cannot fully savor his success. When he resurfaces days later to recharge batteries, the horizon looks crowded, too crowded. Ships appear again, lines of them, where intelligence said there should be shortages. For every vessel sent down, 2 more seem to replace it. In Liverpool, dockhands throw ropes onto bollards as a fresh convoy arrives. Crates of flour, barrels of fuel, stacks of machinery parts fill the docks at a pace that confounds pre-war expectations. The British port officer, Major Andrew Carmichael, studies his clipboard with disbelief. "These aren't supposed to be here yet," he mutters. "We lost 5 ships last month on this route." A sailor grins through cracked lips. "America built more, sir." Back in Richmond, Kaiser does not hear the depth charges or smell the burning fuel on the Atlantic. What he sees is a different set of explosions, sparks flying in silver storms, new hulls sliding down slipways. The yard now glows around the clock, a city that never sleeps. Shift whistles mark the passing of time more surely than any clock. Radio broadcasts of losses at sea drift from tinny speakers, swallowed by the roar of production. April 22nd, 1943. A crowd gathers along the water's edge. Press photographers adjust lenses. Workers smear grime from their faces, wanting, if only for a moment, to look human instead of mechanical. Before them stands a completed ship. Tall, black-hulled, white stenciled letters on her bow, SS Robert E. Peary. The record attempt, a Liberty ship assembled faster than any before it. Pieces prefabricated, units rolled in like parts of a machine, welded by hundreds of hands, guided by stopwatches and shouting supervisors. The ship is not beautiful in a classical sense. She's boxy, almost crude, but there is something brutally elegant in her purpose. Kaiser stands on the platform again, the same worn hat, the same steady expression. A young reporter asks him if it is even safe to launch a ship built so fast. For a second, Kaiser watches the lines holding the vessel. He imagines her in the Atlantic swells, her decks covered with ice, her holds heavy with hope. "She'll float," he says quietly. "And she'll carry what we need her to carry." A bottle smashes, the restraints release, and the massive hull begins to slide. Steel meets water with a sound like thunder rolling down a mountain. The Robert E. Peary surges forward and takes the sea into her arms, sending waves cascading back over cheering workers. The time, just over 4 days since the first plate was laid. Days, not months. Thousands of miles away, Captain Lieutenant Vogt studies new Allied reports intercepted by the Germans. He stares at the figures. They do not make sense. Even with successful patrols, with tonnage sunk, the total number of Allied ships in service is not shrinking, it is multiplying. And for the first time since he entered the Atlantic, a slow, foreign feeling creeps into his chest. Uncertainty. June 11th, 1943, German Naval High Command, Berlin. The room is thick with cigarette smoke and impatience. Brass lamps glow over a long oak table, scarred by years of maps, coffee rings, and clenched fists. Along the walls, enormous charts have been pinned and repinned so many times, the edges curl like old leaves. Red pins mark Allied convoy routes. Black pins mark confirmed sinkings. Blue lines show U-boat patrol zones. Grand Admiral Karl Dönitz stands at the head of the table, jaw set, fingers pressed flat against the wood. He is the architect of the U-boat war, the mind that turned the Atlantic into a killing lane. For a long time, his numbers were poetry, a perfect ratio of destruction to production. Ships sunk faster than they could be replaced. Britain brought closer to starvation month by month. But the charts in front of him are no longer poetry. They are an insult. A junior officer, Lieutenant Kruger, clears his throat and steps toward the table, holding a folder bound in twine. His hands tremble almost imperceptibly as he opens it. Since January, he begins, Allied shipyards in the United States have launched over 2,000 merchant vessels. The majority are a new standardized class referred to as Liberty ships. Their average construction time has fallen below 40 days in multiple yards. Some reports indicate under 10. A murmur spreads through the room. An older officer scoffs. Impossible. Our yards took months even before the war. Kruger swallows. One ship, the Robert E. Peary, was constructed in 4 days, 15 hours and 29 minutes. Silence. Even the shuffling of papers seems to stop. Dönitz stares at a photograph clipped into the report. A blunt-bowed cargo ship sliding into Californian water, dwarfed by cranes and American flags. He studies the faces of the workers, frozen mid-cheer, as if daring the ocean to challenge them. 4 days, he murmurs. He thinks of Vogt and men like him, cramped in steel tubes, risking everything to sink one merchant ship at a time. Weeks of stalking for a few kills. And now he sees the truth forming in cold, unforgiving arithmetic. For every ship a U-boat destroys, America has already laid the keel of 5 more. He looks up. Increase patrol density, he orders tightly. Concentrate wolf packs in the mid-Atlantic gap. Order all commanders to maximize tonnage. But even as the commands are spoken, a shadow crawls behind his eyes. He knows this is no longer a simple race between torpedo and hull. This is a war of assembly lines, of unfathomable steel rivers pouring from inland states that have never seen the ocean. In Richmond, in Portland, in Savannah, new yards bloom along the coasts like industrial cities born overnight. They are named with efficiency instead of romance. Yard 1, Yard 2, Yard 3. Inside them, production is becoming something almost alien. Cranes move on fixed patterns. Templates hang from every wall. Lunch breaks are timed to the minute. Crews work in shifts that turn night into an extension of day. Maria Alvarez barely notices the date anymore. She moves by whistle, by bell, by the position of the sun through a grimy window high above her weld station. Her hands know the hull better than they know rest. Where once she questioned the work, now she trusts the blueprint without hesitation. She can feel a flaw through the vibration of her gloves. She can anticipate where a seam will warp and correct it before it happens. One evening, as she steps away from a completed weld, she sees the name of the ship being painted, SS Jeremiah O'Brien. She runs her fingers along the warm metal and whispers, "Go fast, don't sink." Across the Atlantic again, on a frigid midnight watch, a British sailor named Thomas Greaves leans his weight against a rail, staring into black water. His cargo ship creaks and hums as it cuts through swells. Below deck, wheat medical kits, replacement aircraft parts bound for squadrons that wait on English airfields. He knows the danger. He has seen the column of fire on the horizon when a ship is struck. He has smelled burning oil and heard the haunted cries of men in freezing water. But tonight, another ship sails close off his port side, and another beyond her, and another behind him, silhouettes stretching backward to the edge of sight. He exhales a foggy breath of disbelief. "Where in God's name are they all coming from?" he mutters. A petty officer answers, "California." Some fella named Kaiser. The sea answers with waves. Below the waterline, Kapitän Leutnant Vogt listens to Allied propellers overhead. But there's a stark new reality in the rhythm of them. There are too many. Not just a convoy, but convoys following convoys. He closes his eyes for a moment and sees them. The American yards he has never visited, the sparks he has never smelled, the hands he will never shake. He imagines that plain man in a fedora watching another ship slide down the ways. And for the first time, Vogt understands that he may not be fighting a navy anymore at all. He may be fighting a factory. September 2nd, 1943, Richmond, California. The yard no longer feels like a workplace. It feels like a living, breathing organism. Steam rolls across the concrete in low clouds. Overhead, gulls scream and vanish into the haze. The clang of steel is so constant that when a moment of quiet arrives, it feels unnatural, as if the air itself has stopped breathing. Along the weld lines, faces are streaked with sweat and ash, eyes narrowed in concentration behind darkened masks. The torches hiss, the metal glows, and another Liberty ship begins to exist where, only days before, there was nothing but open space. Henry Kaiser walks the length of dock number 2 with a small entourage of government observers and Navy inspectors. Their expressions have changed since the early days. The skepticism has turned into grudging respect. Their notebooks are now filled not with questions, but with calculations. Tonnage per month, man-hours per section, potential expansion. One of them, Commander William Hart, pauses to watch a hull module descend slowly into place. "It shouldn't work like this," he says. "It's too fast, too loose. No Navy yard in the world ever did it this way." Kaiser doesn't turn to look at him. His eyes are on the workers, the welders moving like surgeons, the crane operators aligning steel with the precision of men threading needles made of iron. "No Navy yard in the world ever had to beat German submarines by the calendar," he replies. He keeps walking. On the radio mounted to a wooden post, a war correspondent's voice crackles through static. Another convoy has successfully reached Liverpool with minimal losses. Admiralty officials state that increased American ship production is now outpacing German sinkings by a wide margin. Men glance up. Some cheer, most simply keep working. The war is too big to celebrate mid-shift. Maria Alvarez steps back from a finished seam and rolls her aching shoulders. A supervisor chalks a mark beside her work. Approved. She wipes her brow with the back of her glove, leaving a black streak like camouflage. Around her, the section chief barks out times. 3 minutes behind schedule, move it. Next plate in. 3 minutes used to be meaningless. Now it is a potential casualty list. In the canteen during a hurried break, workers sit on benches, bolted to the floor. They eat thick sandwiches and drink bitter coffee. Conversation drifts, tired but alive. "My cousin is on a destroyer in the Atlantic," one man says. He says it's like marching through a cemetery out there. Maria listens, then quietly answers, "Then let's give him more ships than tombstones." Laughter breaks out, sharp, defiant. Then the whistle blows again. Back on the Atlantic, September 16th, 1943. A convoy bigger than any before pushes eastward under low, brooding clouds. Above it, long-range American B-24 Liberators patrol the infamous Mid-Atlantic Gap, once a blind spot where U-boats hunted at will. Now radar pulses through the emptiness like a searching heartbeat. On the bridge of the Liberty ship, SS John W. Brown, Captain Edward Mallory grips his binoculars, scanning the restless surface. He is a merchant sailor turned wartime captain, his face permanently lined by salt and wind. He has commanded older, slower ships, antiques compared to this new, blunt American monster beneath his boots. A signalman looks up. "Aircraft spotted. Portside, low altitude." For a tense second, Mallory's gut clenches. Then he recognizes the shape, twin tail, broad wings. "American bomber," he exhales. "We've got eyes in the sky now." Below the waves, Captain Lieutenant Vogt feels the shift in fortune, like a man suddenly swimming against a rising current. His patrol has yielded little. Escorts are quicker to react, aircraft appear from nowhere. Sonar pings echo through his hull like a predator's heartbeat. He scans through his periscope at a convoy that seems to stretch forever. Ships upon ships, lines of smoke smearing the horizon. Boxy silhouettes, ugly and proud, refusing to disappear. "Too many," he murmurs. His first officer looks at him, eyes hollow from lack of sleep. "We fire, Herr Kapitän Leutnant." Vogt hesitates. Once this decision thrilled him. Now he calculates something colder. Torpedoes versus ships, depth charges versus hull, escape routes versus new Allied tactics. Even if he hits one, even if he hits two, the rest will steam on. They will not end, he realizes out loud. They will simply build another. Still, orders are orders. Still, he is a hunter. "Prepare to fire tubes 1 through 3, he commands. The torpedoes leap from the submarine once more, streaking toward history. Explosions bloom. One ship shudders, breaks, begins to sink. Men shout, lifeboats drop. Smoke claws into the sky. But the convoy does not stop. Escorts surge forward, dropping charges with brutal precision. The ocean convulses around Vought's boat. Lights flicker. Water sprays from a ruptured pipe. Men grip each other as steel groans. Down to 200 meters, he yells. A deafening blast tears through the stern. The U-boat lurches, barely holding integrity. Alarms scream. And then, for a moment that echoes in memory, nothing but silence and failing gauges. When the boat finally creeps away, broken but alive, Vogt understands something with sick clarity. This is no longer a battle he can win. The ocean itself has turned into a conveyor belt of American steel. In Liverpool, cranes unload crates from the John W. Brown, from the Jeremiah O'Brien, from a never-ending stream of Liberty ships whose names blur together. Each one a lifeline. Children watch from behind fences as flour sacks pile high. Soldiers rest their hands on fresh American trucks. The war machine breathes again. And back in California, another hull is already halfway complete. Kaiser stands once more on his familiar platform. The noise no longer bothers him. It is a symphony now, a relentless, unstoppable rhythm of defiance. Someone near him says, half in awe, "You've changed the war, Mr. Kaiser." Kaiser watches the sparks fall like bright rain. "I just changed the speed of it," he answers. September 15th, 1942. Mid-Atlantic night. Moonless, only the faint glow of phosphorescent waves breaking against steel. And in that darkness, silhouettes, dozens of them, a convoy, slow, vulnerable, but no longer helpless. On the bridge of the Liberty ship, SS Joseph N. Teal, Captain Warren O. Peterson gripped the cold railing as North Atlantic wind tore at his coat. The ship had left New York only 6 days earlier. An almost absurd thought for a man trained in an era where merchant ships required months of construction. Yet here it was, 441 feet of welded steel, steaming into waters once ruled by U-boats. The radio hissed with static, then a clipped British voice cut through. "Convoy, be advised, Wolfpack Vorwärts has been sighted to the north. Expected contact within the hour." Peterson exhaled slowly. Here it comes. Below decks, the engine room roared, its triple expansion steam engine pounding like a giant metal heart. Sparks cascaded from the furnace doors. The crew moved with a tense quiet, each man aware of the torpedoes hunting somewhere beyond the dark horizon. And off the port bow, barely visible, a shape slid across the waves. Escort destroyer HMS Bucklebury, cutting a zigzag pattern, ASDIC sonar pulsing into the deep. The convoy wasn't fast, Liberty ships never were. But there were many of them now, and that changed everything. Moments earlier, 180 feet below the surface of the same ocean, aboard German submarine U-389, Captain Lieutenant Dieter Holtz listened to the creak of hull plates tightening under pressure. The air smelled of sweat, machine oil, and stale bread. He hunched over the plotting table as his chief sonar operator whispered, "Multiple screws detected. Bearing 126th, very slow, merchant class." Holtz narrowed his eyes. Slow meant easy prey. Or it used to. He studied the contact pattern. Too many signatures. The British were not supposed to have replaced their losses so quickly, not at the pace U-boats had been sinking them earlier that year. "Gott im Himmel," he muttered. Where are they getting all these ships? He didn't yet know the answer was Henry Kaiser, a man he had never heard of, a man who had never trained as a naval engineer, a man whose impossible welded ships were appearing in numbers that defied every logic of wartime industry. Holtz raised his hand. "Prepare torpedoes 1 and 2. Depth 3 meters, set to impact." His men scrambled, valves hissed. The attack run began. Back above, Peterson saw it first, white streaks slicing across black water. "Torpedoes, port side." The convoy erupted into action. The Joseph N. Teal's helmsman threw the wheel hard over. The Liberty ship's bow groaned as it swung, a slow, lumbering arc, but just enough. One torpedo hissed past the hull, close enough that the shockwave rattled the bulkheads. Another detonated under a nearby freighter, SS Empire Heron, lifting it from the ocean in a plume of flame and steam. When the spray cleared, the ship had snapped in two. "Signal the escorts," Peterson barked, but they were already moving. HMS Buckleberry accelerated, engines howling, sonar pinging furiously as she closed in on U-389's last known position. Depth charges rolled off her stern, sinking, boom, 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 boom. Columns of water punched skyward. Inside, U-389 lights flickered. Dust rained from seams in the ceiling. "Herr Kapitän, damage in the aft ballast tank!" Holtz slammed his fist against the periscope mount. This was not how things went in 1941. Back then, the convoys were thin, the escorts few, the supply lines strangling, but something had changed. The sea itself felt different, thicker with ships, louder with engines, alive with resistance. U-389 leveled out, skipping along the thermocline. Holtz knew the escorts could pursue him for hours, but not the convoy. Peterson watched the destroyer peel away, chasing the U-boat into the night. And ahead, like steel ghosts drifting across the waves, the rest of the Liberty-built convoy continued on, rows of ships that simply should not have existed in such numbers. 3 hours later, dawn cracked over the Atlantic. Not a gentle sunrise, a raw metallic light that revealed the scars of the night. Oil slicks shimmered where Empire Heron had gone down. Debris floated, crates, lifeboat oars, a single upturned helmet. But the convoy, 34 ships strong, still sailed. Peterson scanned the horizon. The wind carried the smell of diesel and ocean mist. A petty officer approached. "Sir, that could have been worse." Peterson nodded. "It would have been 6 months ago." He knew the truth. They were only afloat because Kaiser's yards were building ships faster than Germany could sink them. Welded steel prefab sections, production lines running day and night. Warships could hunt the U-boats, convoys could organize. But without the hulls, the actual cargo ships, Britain would starve. And it was Henry Kaiser, a man who had never designed a ship before the war, who made sure they did not. Peterson turned his eyes to the rising sun. A new day over the Atlantic, a new tide in the war. "Steady as she goes," he said softly. The Liberty ship rumbled onward. September 23rd, 1942, Liverpool, England. Fog hugged the Mersey River as the first silhouettes emerged from the grey. Tall masts, squat smokestacks, blocky bows pushing through the mist like stubborn fists. Dock workers stood frozen for a moment on the pier, eyes wide, mouths slightly open. Another convoy, not one ship, not a handful, dozens. They came in a slow, steady procession, horns moaning through the damp air as if announcing a resurrection. Rust-streaked hulls, fresh grey paint, names stenciled crudely on the bow in white block letters. SS John W. Brown, SS Amos Kendall, SS Samuel Chase, SS George Washington, Carver Liberty ships. Men on the pier pulled off their caps. Some crossed themselves, others simply stared, unable to believe what they were seeing. 6 months ago, this same harbor had been full of gaps and wreckage. Broken masts, half-sunken hulks. And above all, silence where food should have been arriving. Now the river was filled. A British Army lieutenant turned to the dock supervisor, almost in disbelief. "Where in God's name are all these coming from?" The supervisor shook his head slowly. "America," he said. "And apparently from a fellow who doesn't even know how to build ships the proper way." He said it with a grin that hadn't existed on this island in years. Grain swung into motion, ropes flew. Cargo nets dropped into the holds and came back up heavy with wheat, corn, canned meats, ammunition crates stamped with American markings. The process moved with desperate efficiency, England feeding itself again one netful at a time. A gaunt woman stood behind a cordon of soldiers near the dock gate, her little son bundled against the autumn chill. He pointed excitedly. "Mummy, look at them all." She blinked away tears. "Yes, darling. That means we'll eat." October 2nd, 1942, Richmond, California, Kaiser Shipyard No. 2. The air here was a different kind of battlefield. Instead of salt and cordite, it stank of smoke, molten metal, and hot oil. The sound that dominated everything was not gunfire, but welding, electric arcs snapping, sizzling, crackling like miniature lightning storms stretched along massive skeletons of steel. This is where the impossible was becoming routine. Henry Kaiser stood on a metal platform overlooking the yard, hands in his coat pockets, hat tilted against the glare. Below him, thousands of workers surged over a steel frame like ants over a fallen tree. Sections of a ship, entire prefabricated chunks of hull, deck, and bulkhead, were being lowered into place by cranes. They slammed together with bone-deep clangs, and instantly welders swarmed the seams, sealing them in bright white light. No rivets, no months of drilling holes and hammering red-hot metal, just weld seal. Move to the next seam. A stopwatch hung around Kaiser's neck. He clicked it as another hull section locked into position. 47 seconds, he noted quietly. Faster than yesterday. An astonished Navy officer beside him stared at the scene. "Mr. Kaiser, do you realize that you're destroying shipbuilding tradition?" Kaiser didn't look away from the yard. "Good," he replied. "Tradition is too slow." He turned slightly, eyes sharp. "Out there," he added, pointing west toward the invisible ocean line, "they're being sunk in minutes. So we'll build them in days." December 30th, 1942, the yard had gathered. Workers lined the catwalks, reporters crowded behind ropes. Flashbulbs popped in the winter haze. In front of them sat a completed Liberty ship. Fresh paint, flawless welds, American flags snapping from the stern. A sign hung from the crane above it, "From keel to launch, 4 days, 15 hours, 29 minutes." Even the most skeptical Navy men were speechless. A woman welder, bandana tied over her hair, face smeared with soot, leaned against a railing and laughed in disbelief. "My husband built ships before the war," she said to no one in particular. "Took him 8 months on one hull. 8 months!" She pushed herself upright as champagne smashed against the bow of the new vessel. "I just helped build one in under a week." The ship slid down the greased ramp and hit the water with a thunderous splash, waves rolling outward as the crowd erupted in cheers. Henry Kaiser didn't cheer. He watched silently as the wake moved away from the ship. Every ripple was a lifeline to Britain. Every welded seam was another blow to the U-boat fleet. For every Liberty ship launched, German commanders had to chase more targets. More fuel, more torpedoes, more risk. The Atlantic was turning from a killing field into an industrial conveyor belt that simply would not stop moving. Back in his office that night, a telegram lay on Kaiser's desk. It was from London. "Our stores replenishing. Morale improving, convoys report heavier than ever. You are saving a nation." No signature. None was needed. Kaiser folded the paper carefully, placed it in the inside pocket of his jacket, and walked back out into the night where the yard still blazed with light. More ships were rising, more sections were being welded, more hulls were taking shape, and somewhere out there on the bitter black Atlantic, another convoy would soon crest the horizon. Not thin, not helpless, not alone.